This is a radio broadcast from the Good Boys Gone Bland. Seek shelter now. Hello and welcome to Good Boys Gone Bland, Season 7, Episode 412, Monkeys. I'm your co-host, Denalicus Prime.
Oh, man, that was good. I'm your co-host, Ryan. I don't have cool robot noises.
You could be the human.
Oh, that's because I'm a human.
Gerald, the damn toaster ran away again. It said it's Mighty Morphin time.
Am I the only Transformer here on this planet?
It said
Jace
podcast host Jace, I hate you, and then it ran off.
Jace is obviously the redneck at the beginning of the movie that comes into contact with the technology.
Greetings, human. I'm here to kick Megatron's butt.
I don't know no Megatron.
Have you seen any semi-trucks around?
Yeah, I drive one.
Point me to the direction of your car so I may kick its ass.
Yeah, okay, well, you're going to want to take 15 minutes down Leroy Avenue, okay? And then you're going to take the first left onto Menomina Street.
Listen,
okay?
just tell me where it's
And
at, the
then-
address, and I could just put it in my maps. You don't have to do this directions thing. I
Put it
come
into
from a
your
planet.
maps.
Okay. Yeah, I come from a planet where we have GPS.
What in tarnation is GPS?
This isn't gonna work. This isn't gonna work. I'm
So anyway, after you take the left on Menomina Street, you're going to want to go
Jesus.
past the house with the broken picket fence. Okay?
Jace,
Okay,
you watch
broken.
them taters yet like I told you?
No, I'm giving directions to a nice robotic man. See, now you got me in trouble, robot.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to do this alien war. They've come to this planet trying to harvest the energon in your Earth's crust.
Well, no, I think Enercon is the gas station.
Welcome to our show, guys. We're a marathon podcast that marathons 10 movies of a similar subject. We're doing end of the world movies. And guys, I'm just so gosh darn excited because I watched the trailer for Transformers Rise of the Beasts.
What?
And it was
Is that what you were
fucking
doing?
sick.
Because I was going to ask, there's no robots.
Look,
in this
listen,
movie.
all right? Listen, I used to watch Beast Wars and Beast Machines growing up, so this is a pretty exciting...
What about Beastmaster?
No, I did watch Beastmaster, the first season, I guess. I am excited for this release, and I figured since Jace, I know you have the next pick, but I just kind of wanted to make a gentleman's agreement. Maybe you can pitch the Transformers movie, I can pitch the Transformers Dark of the Moon, and we can just hijack the rest of the season to do a Transformers movie. There's 7 total. I think we can just watch the rest of the series, and they're all typically legally end-of-the-world movies, and I think we can pull this off. Just wanted to
Are there
pitch that
7
idea.
Transformers movies?
With this new one coming out, it'll take it up to 7. We can watch it in theaters for the final episode. And then after me and Jace pitch a Transformers movie, Ryan will kind of feel obligated to pitch, the third one, the trilogy.
Is Michael Bay still at the helm of Transformers, or...
So I don't think so. I think this Rise of the Beast is an offshoot of the Bumblebee movie. So it's directed by...
the Bumblebee movie.
Yeah, and this is the director.
Very much different than the Bee movie.
It's don't get those twisted.
And a lot different than Bumble. It's funny how it's like
Words
cooking.
are funny.
Yeah, you take 2 ingredients and then make something completely different.
Completely different if you mix the Bumble and the Bee. Yeah. So you guys psyched for this movie or what?
12 Monkeys or Transformers?
Well, I was thinking about monkeys from this movie, and I know Optimus Primal is a gorilla in Beast Machines.
What? That's cool.
Isn't that's pretty sick, right?
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, they're like a whole new race of Autobots. They turned into organic Transformers. They turned into
Organic
animals.
machines.
Yeah, they're biomechanical.
So are you still on? Didn't they just show up when there were only animals on the planet? So they were like,
Well,
oh, look, a cat. I'm going to turn into that.
I think if I remember correctly, they crash land on a mysterious planet. All right, this is during Beast Wars, And the planet is so rich in energon, it's actually toxic to their mechanical bodies.
Oh.
So they had to turn into something organic to shield themselves from the toxicity.
Is this
of the
true
energon.
canon from like the old show that you're talking about, not the new one?
This is from the old show from like 1999. Yeah, and so they turn into the Maximals, which are like the offshoot of the Autobots.
That's
totally
already
reading
too much
Wikipedia.
information for them to put in the movie, because they'll be like, "Yeah, what do you think? We're freaking nerds. Why would these robots turn into organic
Yeah, it's interesting
creatures?"
when you have a robot franchise and the target demographic has zero overlap with nerds. It's like not a great business model.
They don't even try to appeal to fucking robots at all with these Transformers movies. Like, don't you want to like appeal
Robots
to
as
this
customers?
Yeah, there's this new AI market. They're making art now. They're making all sorts of shit. They're taking jobs with their fucking AI brains. Shouldn't we at least like, be making a buck off of them, trying to get them to put mechanical butts in seats and shit?
So you're saying we should, if we create some sort of AI, if they take jobs on one part of the economy, they need to participate in the demand side of economy too.
Yeah. So make them buy some tickets to Transformers. I'm just saying we can make a quick buck off some AI.
It's not a bad idea.
Yeah. So that's a pretty sweet idea.
So
Check
we're
out
gonna have to
Transformers.
we're gonna have to put them into bodies.
Yeah, but I figured like they can pay per stream. I feel like AIs can watch movies faster than us. So maybe one AI can watch it tens of thousands of times, absorb its information. Versus a human, you have to pay $10 and they watch it again a year later. AIs, we can really milk them for money.
Oh, I was imagining robots.
Well, the robots too. I think it's a cool idea. But listen, I don't want to get us away from.
You don't want to get us away from what we're talking about. You don't want to get us away from that.
Yeah. So we're in the midst. Sorry guys, but I'm just so excited for this movie. But we're in the midst. Episode 4 of our End of the World season. Mm-hmm. We're zipping through this thing because we're actually doing these in sequence, unlike before. But how are you guys feeling? I want to do a little vibe check. How are you guys feeling watching this many End of the World movies?
I'm stoked. This is the best I've felt about a season, 4 movies in, I think, ever.
Yeah, I'm liking it too. It's even if the movies aren't necessarily all good, this is just a wild ass journey to take, and there's always a lot to talk about, I think.
Yeah. What were the first 4 in the dog season? We had Air Bud.
Oh Jesus. Fuck.
Because I felt pretty good about the dog
Clifford
season.
was in there.
Clifford was the second episode.
And then it got terrible.
We watched Scooby-Doo like twice.
Yeah.
Man,
no, we watched 2 different Scooby-Doo movies.
Zowie might still be one of my favorite movies. It's like probably top.
Pet
It's probably
Sematary
like
2.
top. Oh yeah, Pet Sematary 2. It's like up there for sure for movies that are like top 5 of my memories of watching and then talking about them, because it was so
I think about
fucking
that movie
crazy.
sometimes whenever I see a dirt bike.
Oh God, yeah. Like ripping that kid's face open with a dirt bike.
Yeah, which I think if you put those words into a sentence, it doesn't make sense, which is what true art does. It allows you to interpret what otherwise would be unknowable.
It's a wicked ass movie. And Snow Dogs was our episode 3 and then All Dogs Go to Heaven. What a crazy ass. We should do another animal season, guy. That's why I was trying to pitch horses all those times.
I think horses is not bad. I do like this season. It seems like we can have a lot of variety.
Yeah, we can.
But at the end of the day, we still have something to talk about. And I feel like rating these movies is going to be pretty good. I feel like it's going to be predictable what the ratings are going to be, especially if there's something like Moonfall. Where it was super predictable what everybody was going to say. So I think that about this, I kind of know where I'm going to go, but I want to talk to you guys about it.
Yeah.
And I was excited to watch this movie because I hadn't seen it and I had really been looking forward to it. And I think that's something that the actor's part kind of restricts me a little bit, where I'm not too interested in seeing 10 Keanu movies because he kind of sucks. And
okay.
That's the conclusion we came to after being forced to sit through
that he was pretty average.
Right. He didn't really do much for a
Keanu
movie.
Listen, as someone who works in the industry, Keanu, I'd love to work with you. You're a great actor. I'd love to learn some tips. You're right? Because we have seen a lot of different variety of stuff. I do think this season will still allow us to lose our minds in the same way, just seeing the same crazy shit over and over again of the Earth ending. But I was kind of thinking, what if all our disasters fought? Who would win in a fight?
Ooh.
Like we've seen 4 world enders? Like, what if they fought each other like Godzilla style? Like, who would come out on top?
I think Moonfall.
You think Moon would win?
But if there's no Earth to smash into.
Okay, let's think about this, because this movie had what? Germs, okay? Boring. Moon would burn germs. So that's done, right? Agreed?
Okay, rock, paper, scissors style is what you're doing.
Yeah. What was the second movie we watched again? Was it Fifth Element? The movie I shit on for like an hour.
So the Fifth Element beats...
Okay, that one actually is a pretty fucking...
Is that supposed to destroy the universe, though? Is that what we decided?
I think it does. So I think that's gonna wicked beat the Moon.
But what about the core? The core, does that beat the Moon? Because there'd be no Earth to smash into?
So it's kind of funny because the core, I think, is the size of the Moon. I think, isn't it? I don't know.
Core is
I don't
massive.
think it is. No, it's way bigger. Okay, core is gonna lose to Fifth Element. I guess that's it. Shit, that was an easy bracket, huh?
Yeah.
Big ass
There's only 4
universe eating thing is gonna beat all of them. Do you guys think there's gonna be one that would wipe out Earth better?
Then either of those movies, like a disaster movie?
I don't know what's gonna beat Alien Evil Force.
I'd agree.
I mean, maybe
Something maybe biblical.
Yeah, maybe biblical, like Moses turns evil.
Yeah,
and
evil
wants
Moses is really it's worse than the moon falling to Earth and being obliterated by an alien force that kills all life in the universe. Yeah, evil Moses.
I
the
don't
most
know
powerful of biblical beings.
Okay, all right, fine. I'll pick a different one. Who's another biblical guy? Cain,
Moses.
Abel. Which one was the bad twin?
Could have been a deli dude.
I don't know.
Slice
His
the beets.
job is just parting things,
Parting the beats.
parting the bread.
Moses reincarnated. Put him to the absolute worst use.
Yeah, when the moon is crashing into the earth, he just
parts the moon.
He could like part the moon. Dude, what if Moses was a
just
hero?
totally
Dog?
misses.
because that's how accelerate. That's how. That's how things go in space.
And then the two halves turn around and start coming back. He's like, oh shit! Splits them both.
I have to part something every 5 seconds now. There's so much pieces. Yeah, I mean, this scenario, I think, was the most grounded of everything we've seen so far. I think easily, right?
Yeah.
It's not
the most
celestial.
realistic.
Yeah. I mean, some might say it's partially happened.
In progress.
Currently in progress. Loading. Yeah, like, you look at the opening title of this movie, 5 billion people will die from a deadly virus in 1997. Once again, animals will rule the world, and the survivors will abandon the surface of the planet.
Okay, so do we want to just start talking about this freaking movie? Because there's so much to talk about.
Yeah, Jace, I don't want to take your synopsis from you. You want to just...
It's
Ryan's.
It's Ryan. Jace, go ahead and take Ryan's synopsis.
I don't want to take yours, but I want you to take Ryan's.
Yeah, Ryan, go ahead and summarize.
Okay, so we watched 12 Monkeys, directed by Terry Gilliam of Monty Python fame. He pretty much directed those old movies like Monty Python and the Holy Grail. But since then, he branched out into a lot of really well-known kind of hardcore sci-fi movies like Brazil. And this is kind of in his classic style. It's kind of steampunk and, evil government, Big Brother kind of stuff.
Governor.
Yeah, British people for some reason. And in this movie, it's a pandemic. We know that sometime in the 90s, in the late 90s, 96, 97, a pandemic breaks out, and it was a targeted attack, like a bioweapon. And in the future, everybody lives below ground. And they have prisoners and stuff, because of course, but most everybody's dead, so the cities are abandoned. And what these scientists, the people in charge, are doing is they're taking those prisoners and they're sending them into the the outside world to gather information.
Still accurate.
So Bruce Willis is one of those prisoners, and he gets sent to volunteer to go collect information from the outside world.
Yeah.
And so he goes up to the surface and stuff, and he does a good job. So he essentially gets promoted, and he gets promoted to being sent back in time and gathering information about the past, pre-pandemic, so they can do a better job of curing the virus in the future.
Time
they can't
travel,
prevent
baby.
it, but they might be able to cure it. And I don't want to say much else.
That's a pretty good summation, Ryan, because there's a lot of twists and turns, and it can be a little like, because it's a time travel movie,
Right. And
spatial awareness.
So it's a double movie. It fits into
Yeah.
multiple categories, and that's why I wanted to pick it, because it's not just like Moonfall, which is 100% disaster movie. This also talks about time travel elements and spends some of the movie developing that kind of stuff. And I thought, because Julie didn't know anything about this movie, literally nothing, just that it was called 12 Monkeys and Bruce Willis was in it. And so the title card that Denali read, 5 million people have died, yada, yada, yada.
5 billion people.
Billion people.
That's still a lot of billions left.
Yeah.
That's 2
Well, no,
billion
not in the
people
90s,
left.
really. I mean, we've gained 1 billion in the last 10 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think we're at 8 billion now,
We're
right?
8
Or
billion
9
now.
billion or some shit, like something crazy.
So the attribution on that quote, it says, in 1996, this will happen. And the attribution says, mental patient, 1990, which I thought was like such a cool twist.
That was cool.
On the intro card that you get from movies like Blade Runner and Star Wars. And I really like that about like, it kind of told you what was going to happen. There was going to be this kind of prophecy thing going on.
Can you imagine after all of the words in the first Star Wars, that whole crawl that just says, like, dash, some fucking crazy guy in an asylum? And then there's a princess, and then this empire. Yeah,
Laser swords, man.
What I didn't expect about this movie, too, was that it also hit the crazy person angle
yeah, it did.
with Shutter Island
Hard.
style stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, they really, I think, nailed kind of parallelism with how we treat mentally ill in prison systems too in this movie, right? Like, I'm sure you guys kind of picked that up when you were watching it. Like, they also kind of parallel in the future. There's like the inhumane naked scrubbing, and they do the same thing in the 90s.
Yeah.
They also kind of make you doubt your sanity a bit watching the movie. Kind of plays on the idea of like what is it like for a quote unquote crazy person to be in the system? What is it like from their perspective, and how do they even navigate that, and how insane is the system? And I thought that was a cool part of the movie. I was surprised to get something like that out of it.
One of the things that I took away and thought was hit home is Brad Pitt during his like monologue in is it an asylum?
Yeah.
we would, I think.
I guess you can say asylum.
What's the correct term for where they were at?
Like
A mental
institution.
institution.
I think.
Okay, so when he was on his soapbox and he's describing how the inner workings and the TV is on, and he goes on a rant about how what do we become when we stop consuming? Talking about like the government, we're all pawns. When we stop consuming what they're selling to us, we get placed here, and like that hit really hard for me for when the movie was made, because we're now 24 years later or whatever, and it's like the consumption has changed so drastically than likely what anyone could have thought about when that movie was made, with the podcast that we make and try to get people to listen to, with Instagram, with TikTok, which is now like a data collection. I was like, wow, this movie actually has a pretty funny point, going from you're a crazy guy stuck in an insane asylum to now where it's like consumption is skyrocketing.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and imagine if somebody lived the way people lived in the 90s, like read the newspaper, didn't really have internet, maybe they would go to internet cafes or the library or something, and didn't have a smartphone, called everybody on the phone. We would be like, that dude's crazy. That's my crazy uncle. He lives in the woods. And yeah, so I totally get what you're saying. And that's one thing I love about sci-fi, is that I like watching old sci-fi movies, because sometimes they're spot on and sometimes they are not. And it's fun to see kind of what those people thought would be good or bad for America back in the day.
Yeah, I think good sci-fi, like you're saying, Ryan, is like holds a mirror up to kind of our society, and it makes us think about our shortcomings. Like, if I could plug a book I read recently, which is Capitalist Realism by Mark Fisher, which is kind of like the intro to leftist politics people kind of meme about. Like they kind of mention, the author kind of mentions in that book that like a lot of mental health issues and depression right now might be tied to the oppressiveness of our capitalistic and consumerist society that we live in, something that we recognize as a reality. And I think Brad Pitt his character was kind of touching that a little bit too, where it's like, if you disengage with that reality, people will think you're fucking insane, even though you're doing something that you think is sane. Which I thought it was kind of cool. Like, I feel like there was a political subtext in this, and I think a lot of good sci-fi does.
And Brad Pitt kind of hit it back to back with this and Fight Club. Like, that's kind of the same message 2 movies in a row.
Yeah. Just Gen X, like, malaise towards the system, man. The man! Which I dig. The other thing I think I looked at straight on, I'm curious to see what your guys' reaction to, because this is the second, I guess, is it like French? Kind of like weird aesthetic movie that we've seen. British. Because like you said, this is the director of Brazil, founder of, the steampunk aesthetic. But the shots and the art design and the set pieces, really strange.
Yes, Jace, yeah.
Like
you're
off angle.
Yeah.
Shots all everywhere. Like there's like 45 degrees.
So what I liked was that the cinematography mirrored Bruce Willis's state of mind. So when he's crazy and drugged up, the angle's tilted almost 45 degrees.
Yeah.
It's tilted like 30 degrees. And then when he's like clear and he's running through his mind, he's a normal person, just kind of confused about what's going on. It's maybe shaky cam a little bit, but it's still centered. And like, I really liked the close-ups that were wide angles because you could see past somebody's face to see what was happening behind them. And I really appreciate that in a movie because it tells me they're not just on a closed set where there's like 2 actors and a wall and a camera. Like, there's always people moving in the background. And part of that was distracting because they dub a lot of the dialogue.
Yes. Oh my God.
That's it's kind of fine. Once you realize that's what's going on, it's fine. But that's sort of a byproduct of that style when the set is so busy. So much stuff is happening, but you only want to hear the main characters and you want to hear them clearly. And so I think in a way there are shortcomings with that style. And I do agree that it impacted my viewing pleasure of the movie a little bit, but I was surprised by this movie constantly. And I really did appreciate someone taking a big old swing on something like this.
Yeah, definitely, dude. I totally agree with that. I mean, from the angles, but also from the costumes and the overall aesthetic of the movie. Weird as fuck. Also tonally strange. Like, the scientists were kind of like these gleeful cartoon characters.
Yeah. So that I picked up on that right before it was revealed what they were doing. I was like, this is kind of like, because what is that? And I was trying to think of like what it reminded me of. And I went back to when I had seen a Marx Brothers play. And I was like, it reminds me of that zany weirdness to like that play. And it almost sounds like they're projecting because it is dubbed. So it does kind of sound stilted. And then 2 seconds later on the TV, there's a Marx Brothers play. Like a TV show, like on the TV in the background. And I'm like, oh, I get it. Like, that's purposeful. And one of the characters in the insane asylum that lets him out of the gate and says like, oh, I go this way or whatever. He has a big old fat mustache.
I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah, I missed that.
And so I'm like, okay, now I get it. Now when I see those scientists and they're sitting on one table and the camera's like zooming in really funnily and like they're stilted and they're talking one in a row and you can tell they're not like thinking about what the other characters are saying. They all have like set lines. It's very much play style. It's very much theater style. And I kind of get what's going on at that point. He's just telling a story. He's not really worried about you thinking Bruce Willis is really this character. Right. It's Bruce fucking Willis. And sometimes it's nice to just have somebody be like, yeah, I've been influenced by a lot. I think this stuff is funny. And let's not forget, it's freaking Terry Gilliam, who has made some of the most iconic funny movies ever. And that's very much the same Monty Python style as they do like scripted sketches. And so I kind of viewed it like that a little bit.
That's I think why we get the line, I only see dead people. After he kills the guy.
Well, I think that's a coincidence, Chase, because this movie preceded that.
It did?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh, shit. Wow.
I didn't know.
I thought that was a reference, Jace, and then the whole crawling through the vents was another was a Die Hard reference.
It definitely,
okay,
yeah.
that was, okay,
I think definitely Die Hard. Yeah.
I was like, God damn, a lot of references in this movie. But no, that's I agree, Ryan. Like, I like all the little like references in this movie, and I think incorporating weird elements like this can also make it seem like a dream-like weird movie, and puts you in that headspace of someone who might be in an asylum. Maybe you're not perceiving things correctly. And also the weird like accordion music, like every 10 minutes, where it's like
with the 12 monkeys.
I'm just like, Jesus, this is like maddening. But I think it added to it.
So so Jace, you have seen at least parts of this movie before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How much did you remember?
Once it kicked off, like a good portion of it, I would say like 40%.
Okay, because I was totally shocked the whole time. I had zero idea what was going to happen. And that was a problem for Julie, who apparently missed something in the beginning. And I had to pause the movie because at some point it skipped time and she was like, okay, what is going on? Who is that? And it was when he was describing like the difference, like, oh yeah, this has already happened. She's like, what does it mean? Like, ah! And so I had to like literally explain, he's from the future. He was a prisoner. He was sent back in time and they missed. They sent him to the wrong year. And so they sucked him back. But then they sent him to the wrong year again. So something's going wrong. But he saw someone else. So they're sending multiple people to go find him. And like,
yeah,
that was difficult. And then I thought there was no problem with it. I thought I was on the same page. But then I think if that's not your type of movie, I understand that someone might not enjoy this movie coming in. This is not a movie where you see it on TV and a half an hour has elapsed and you pop it on.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, it also doesn't help that Bruce Willis is super disoriented in the movie, and he's talking like a crazy person. Where he's like, "Oh, it's now, but no, then was now, but this is also now," and you're like, "What the fuck is it?" If you're just coming in, you're like, "What is happening?"
I like that they, from start to finish, I liked how they played that. I think it adds to the comedy of it that this group of scientists that I think don't know what they're talking about, like choose a prisoner that they're like, "You're good at remembering stuff. So we're gonna send you into the past to try and fix this." But they're like, "You're gonna be really disoriented," and it's kind of weird that we're sending kind of our stupid people who are going to get more scramble brained into the past to deal with the problem. But as far as like the time travel, I like that it was kind of binned. Like there's a little bit of crossover between the future talking to the past, but it's also really. I guess just that. To me, it was binned. So it's like very clear when the time travel happens. Mm-hmm. And
unless you're Julie.
If you miss something.
She must have blinked right when it happened. And yeah, and I was going to ask what's your thoughts on how the time travel works. Because in my view of it, it's like the past is the past and time travelers have already been there. So they can't alter the future, right?
That's what I thought this movie was acting on. Yeah, like because that's why they probably didn't even bother with the whole we got to prevent the pandemic from happening.
Yeah,
they were just like, let's just fucking get some.
Let's go get the better. Cure.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're if they send Bruce Willis back at point B back to point A, they can only solve anything that happens point B or later, like point C and etc.
And I think it was just kind of like this recursion loop that's happening where it's like you will always be going back in time. This will always be happening. Mm-hmm. And we can talk about the closing of the loop at the end too. But like I think this is an interesting usage of time travel too, because they don't really get into the weeds with it. They're just like, this is a function of the story, and we are just going to worry about the characters who are existing in the story. Yeah.
And I like that there was no, what if someone else gets a hold of this technology that because I like the movie Looper as well. It's one of my favorite movies.
Another Bruce Willis.
Bruce Willis goes back in time and meets his former self. And but time travel in that is like, oh, the mafia gets a hold of it.
Yeah, that rules. Like
it's so cool. But then again, it's like, I don't know. It doesn't really explain the existence of time travel. If like the government didn't have access to this, or maybe does, why wouldn't they fix these problems? But this movie doesn't even mention, doesn't even care about like who has control of time travel and like whether or not
Yeah.
other people have access to it. Because I guess it doesn't matter, right? Because like they can only affect the future.
And I think that creates an airtight thing, so you don't get nerds being like, well, why don't they just prevent like this war or like all this stuff. So I like that angle to kind of talk more about, I guess, Bruce Willis and like, I guess the general acting of this movie. Like I thought it was, for the most part, pretty well acted. Like I thought Bruce did a pretty good job in this role of playing someone who was disoriented and like agitated.
I'm generally not a Bruce Willis fan.
Yeah, same. I'm kind of the same way, right?
Most of the movie, I will. There's a couple lines that I think were stilted when he was supposed to be super disoriented. But then again, like a lot of them were dubbed. He's not a voice actor, so
And then
naked,
Brad Pitt,
drooling, and disoriented.
Yeah.
This sums up his.
Okay, so what about the scene where he comes back for the first time, or goes back for the first time, and he's in the cell?
Like
Cops
what Jace
found him
was saying,
naked,
right?
and so he's literally covered, like his face is all busted, and he's drooling all over the place, like Jay said. And I like that scene a lot. It was very Silence of the Lambs, because it was obvious to me that they were doing like a Clarice Starling thing,
Like where she's kind of coming in as the psychiatrist. And
yeah,
being
exactly.
Like, yeah, I thought that was a good scene. I thought it was a little difficult to buy her role as a psychiatrist. Just it seemed like she was entertaining his delusions to the point where it was like, okay, they're trying to advance the plot here. Like I feel like an actual psychiatrist wouldn't engage with delusions like that, where she's like, oh, like what year are you coming from? Who are you trying to find? And I feel like they would be more focused on just being like, calm the fuck down. Like let's talk about this. Like
She went to the Anne
please calm
Hathaway
down.
School of
Yeah.
Psychology.
Well, couldn't that? I mean, would maybe not interacting with somebody in that situation, couldn't that be used as like a de-escalation technique? Like obviously wouldn't want to be feeding into somebody's delusions, but wouldn't it be almost worse to be like, it's not 1996, it's 1990, and they're like, no, it's 1996.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I can see your point. Like maybe there's a way to navigate. Yeah, but I would definitely not be like, no, you're fucking crazy. Like, yeah, I did like that scene, too, Ryan. I thought it was interesting, and just the contrast, right? He's like really mentally with it before they put him in the time machine, and when he gets out, he is like, what the fuck? It's like he's been born again or something. And then same with Brad Pitt. At first, it was off-putting for me because I thought it was like almost like mocking of someone who's mentally ill because it was so like loud. I think it slightly grew on me, but I think he did a good job in the role as someone who's perpetually manic and agitated. But it was a little distracting. I think it was a little too wet for me watching this movie. Got an Oscar nom for it.
Yeah, I thought that was surprising.
Same here. I was like, what came out that year? Was it kind of a?
I loved his hand-painted off-kilter eyeball contact that made it look like he constantly had
yeah, I was wondering about
eye.
that. I was like, has he always had like this fucking lazy eye? Was it like a Tom Cruise situation where he like fixed it early in his career and then we never like Tom Cruise's
I
teeth?
also thought the costumes deserved their nomination. I saw that they got a costume nomination and Brad Pitt.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
But then again, like the editing, I thought the editing was really nice and snappy. There was nothing about the presentation of this movie that I did not like. And that's something I think my preference for sci-fi has kind of been molded a lot by Ridley Scott because I really like his movies. And The Thing, too, is kind of like a horror sci-fi, and that's, John Carpenter stuff. So I think that's like the horror kind of gritty, grotesque elements of sci-fi is what I really attract to. I don't particularly like Star Wars and stuff. It's like everything is nice and shiny and glistening cities and stuff. So this really did, I don't know, ticked it a lot for me. Everything was on Earth, which I also like. I didn't have to like buy into this fantasy world.
No, I agree. And that's why I think we tend to like grounded sci-fi too, where, there is implied world building, but they're just laser focused on this one aspect, which I think is more interesting sometimes. This isn't a world I need to particularly get immersed in. And I think it would be worse the closer you look at it.
Dune would have been better if it was 3 hours of just the spacesuit that you have to pee into.
Yo, I would watch the still suit cut. Yeah, I would fucking love a 6 hour. I want to live in that world. It looks fucking sick. I don't know.
Looks sick, but also horribly, horribly like.
Oh, it's oppressive.
Violent.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's a fucking fascist feudalist society. What did you guys read that thing about Brad Pitt? What Terry Gilliam did to him to like make him act like this? Like he.
No.
Apparently, like, he was worried that Brad Pitt couldn't pull it off because he's like a young actor, and he sent him to a speech coach, but ended up just taking away Brad Pitt's cigarettes, and so he was in nicotine withdrawal the whole time and just like flipping out the whole time, and so he ended up nailing all the scenes in the way he wanted to. He's like, perfect, and then Brad's probably like dying in the background, which I thought was pretty funny.
That's interesting because during Monty Python and the Holy Grail, Graham Chapman was going through alcohol withdrawal.
Oh.
Like super bad to the point where he was like, doing like shaking and stuff and like really bad. Yeah,
I heard that can be pretty bad.
Oh, it's like one of the only withdrawals that can kill you.
Yeah, geez. Well, maybe he's he's like, oh, he got a great performance from being violently ill. This poor man. One thing I did appreciate was just like, I mean, again, to kind of get back to Bruce Willis's, like the way his lines are presented, because he's so disoriented and he has no way to explain his situation accurately. And then he's around this like fucking torturous, like gleeful assholes who are operating in this penal system, who's, abusive, and they're also just not listening to him. It makes you feel really claustrophobic. Like you're like, holy fuck, like what if I was in that scenario and I couldn't explain myself? And and I think it would provided kind of almost like an empathetic, hypothetical lens for someone who's in that system. If you really had an experience like that, not even saying you're from the future, but you just had a mental episode, like what kind of environment are you going to be in, like, and how are you going to be treated? I don't know, thought that was good.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm glad it didn't turn into an insane asylum movie, because
it
could have easily went in the One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest road and been a fine movie, but like I'm glad that we got this kind of adventure comedy out of it.
Yeah.
I like, just as far as the pacing of the film, it's like the first section where they really give us the base of the world building, where he's in the future and he's being selected, and it's like really thought-provoking and a really good like 15-20 minutes. And then I thought, as much as I enjoyed it in the performance, that the insane asylum stuff was kind of a slog. And I understand that like it's like a key aspect of the film. I was just
I know what you mean.
I had to split up watching between 2 days, and I watched probably an hour and 15 minutes today and enjoyed it a lot more than the first half, just because it went from like this, to me, this really thought-provoking, oh wow, how would I interact in this world, to, like you said, claustrophobic, really manic. It made me feel that way, and I'm like, wasn't in the best headspace going into the movie. I was like, It's been a long day, holy shit. And it's kind of like,
Dude, I agree. And my first watch through of this was like in 2013, 2014. And I actually stopped kind of halfway. I just like could not stand Brad Pitt's like manic rants. And I was like, this is just too much. And then the accordions come in for like the 6th time, and he's like, it's a madhouse. He's like throwing stuff, and I'm like, Jesus, like, and I shut it off, and I was like, I'll revisit this. And on the rewatch, knowing that was coming, I think it was easier for me. But I wasn't like super psyched on those scenes either.
I can see how there would be a hard first watch. Like I totally see that, and I think that's what Julie's problem was, is that she didn't know what to expect. I thought the Insane Asylum, I agree, the pacing was a little poor, but I liked the scene. It was hilarious with the spider.
He's just wild.
He definitely overacts, and like they're like, oh, where's the spider going? Oh, for like 2 minutes he's like trying to hide the spider in his hands, but then he just puts it in his mouth. It's so funny. And then later, like an hour later in the movie, he's like, I ate a spider.
I tried to get it back. I got an insect, but I had to eat it. And they're like, great thinking, man.
Yeah.
Good job.
Do something like that again, James. To touch on something else in this movie, like we talked about the psychiatrist character, Catherine, in this movie. At first, I was interested in like her role in this movie, but then it went a direction. I was just like, please don't go this direction. And it fucking did, which was just like, he kidnaps her and then she like falls in love with him. And I'm like, God damn it. And we touch on this. Yeah.
It is interesting. I know what you mean, but like he turned out to not be crazy. So, you know, like, yes, he did kidnap her, and yes, he thought he was an insane person who's like lost his mind. But like at some point, he was just a normal dude who was like, and he also was kind of like a captive too. So I do understand. But as soon as she got wind that he didn't mean harm to her and he was trying to save the world, it wasn't so much like hey, it's cool to go, kidnap, because sometimes they'll fall in love with you.
Yeah, like that was the weird vibe I was getting, where it's like, he is very clearly, like, if you look at it from her perspective, it's like a very horrifying event where he's kidnapping, he throws her in the trunk of a car for hours, and there's a scene where you straight up think he's gonna like strangle her to death. And then like I just feel like some dudes will watch this and be like, if I could just entrap somebody and just show them how interesting I really am, they'll fall in love with me, or just like see who I really am, you know. And like I feel like there's so much of that in movies before, you know, our era.
The I guess it's a complete change of topic, but the getting locked in the trunk thing, this movie does a misdirection a lot, but it also I think does it really well. Like putting a radio in a scene, delivering news that a body's been found when you think that he strangled her, and then he pops the trunk and you're like, that's a terrible situation to be in, especially in the winter, but she's alive. Okay. And then the crazy scene with the other bald guy who I think is a sex worker, who Bruce Willis takes him into the bathroom and like beats the shit out of him. And she's like, no, don't kill him. And he comes out like covered in blood with a knife. And she's like, no. And he's like, I pulled my teeth out.
With a switchblade?
And then when the cops come in and he's in the tub, he's like, no, I didn't do anything. There was a lady and a crazy dentist. Like that's one thing too, is I think the misdirection shows you that comedy doesn't have to just be in like line delivery and stuff. It can be physical. Physical gags are awesome. Visual gags are so funny sometimes. And like there's some really awesome visual gags in movies that make me laugh out loud. But sometimes like plot related gags are funny when I'm invested like 5 minutes of my life into watching this movie and trying to follow the plot. Mm-hmm. And like, okay, yeah. Oh, there's a message. Oh, okay, so he grabbed her by the neck, and then there was a message in the car and saying someone's strangled and all this kind of stuff, and he's going crazy, and he's coming back to the trunk. Oh, it's where he put a body, and then no, she's alive. Like that sort of thing, I think, is a little sometimes underappreciated in movies, and especially when you're writing stuff. Like you want to make the audience think, I have to watch this movie, because if I'm not paying attention to at least the majority of the movie, I'm going to miss stuff. And that's what I liked about it, is it rewarded me for watching the movie, because I learned, if I would have left or maybe, you know, turned it off halfway through the movie, I might have think, oh yeah, and then he strangled this woman. Mm-hmm. And I also would have thought, oh, he strangled the woman and he got back to the future, all right, everything was cool. And so I do like when people talk about twists and turns in movies, it's not just you watch the whole movie and at the very end something crazy happens that you were trying to predict and maybe didn't get it right. It's not about that. It's about keeping the audience in the same place as the characters. And we talk about this sometimes with the snap thing, where I talk about sometimes the audience is ahead of the characters and sometimes the characters is ahead of the audience. And when movies really pop and when they do things best with suspense is when those two levels snap to the same level. And so a character having a realization that the audience already knows can be really, really rewarding for the audience who put it together. On the other hand, when a character is so far ahead of the audience and then the audience suddenly catches up in a snap moment, it can be one of those moments that's the reason we watch movies. Twists sometimes get that wrong by taking it out of the character's hands. And they leave it up to a deus ex machina. They leave it up to something that the characters had no idea about and the audience didn't see coming at all. But when a movie like this gives you little bits and pieces of information and the snaps happen more often, that's to me what makes an enthralling movie.
Yeah, I think they did a pretty good job at kind of, I agree, like crafting that experience, you know, for the audience. And I feel like those misdirections did have me scratching my head a little bit. Like, for example, like the one, like the trunk of the car thing. Because they say on the radio, like, we found a strangled lady, like in the, like, who's the strangled person if it wasn't the therapist? Like, there was still a strangled person somewhere?
Murder happens a lot, bro.
I guess, I guess it was just another...
There's a lot of murder in the world.
And also to show Bruce Willis's character, like, he's killing people.
Yeah.
He does go out and he kills people, and he's serving a prison sentence for 25 to life. So essentially saying, like, he's a violent criminal. And the guards even say that he's a violent criminal. Mm-hmm. But he's not just indiscriminately killing like the Terminator or Predator or, you know, Jason Voorhees. He's not that simple. He has motives and ways of connecting to other characters. And that's why we need to pay attention to him. That's why we need to care about him and learn what he likes and dislikes, because sometimes it might be the difference between living and dying.
No, I can get that too, but like I feel like the kills in this movie with Bruce Willis especially, I feel like it was that weird kind of 80s 90s rage bait, you know what I'm talking about, where it's like the villain is just so bad, where it's kind of like someone's like PSA video where they're like, "Oh, come here," like, "Oh," like it's like this whole thing, and then he just like goes crazy and executes them and just keeps stomping on their head over and over again. And like when I saw that, it took me out of it. I was just like,
I would agree that the two scenes where that occurs were jarring nonetheless.
Yeah.
I think they were on a rewatch in a 2020 eye that they're also the most problematic.
The only black guy in the movie was a rapist who he execute. Like, yeah. And I know that's like, you know, they're not doing that on purpose, but it's it is an indicator of the time. You know, it's like they'll put shit like in that because they know it's going to get a reaction, and it does perpetuate something. And you know, we've talked about this with other episodes. I don't want to get into it too much, but shit like that does, like, it's just kind of like, it pulls me out, and I'm like, you know, it hurts my enjoyment. So, to kind of, I guess, get into the solution of this movie, right? Like what kind of the end game goal is with Bruce Willis. He's going back in time, right, to get a pure sample of the virus so that they can find a cure. Because for whatever reason, the mutated version, they can't develop a vaccine or an antiviral thing. I don't really know. I don't think it matters.
I think the scientists are really fucking stupid.
Yeah, like what did you guys kind of think about the wrap up and how it all played out?
I liked it because it showed that Bruce Willis was like a cog in the plan. We were telling his story because his story was interesting, not because it was the only story to be told. And I think that's really important when we talk about a world that's believable. There's things in place that Bruce Willis doesn't know about, and he doesn't need to know about. And the audience can say, oh, the things I don't understand, why are they doing this? Doesn't make any sense. Well, actually, it probably does. And that's what I like, and that's what allows me to turn my brain off and just enjoy the movie. Is sometimes when I see like a movie like Moonfall, I'm like, why did they not just do this thing? Right. And it doesn't make any sense. But I really liked how they took the time travel like mechanic and made it so we are watching somebody who doesn't know what's going on, and he's living in the moment. But the other people he's interacting with sometimes, when he comes into other time traveling agents, they know more than he does because they've already been told everything that he knows by him later on. And so like that was really cool. And
I like that too. Yeah,
I liked that at the very end we learned that it worked. And even though he met his untimely demise, I did like this movie a lot for its resolution, not only like the setup. I think the best two parts of the movie were the final scenes and the first few scenes.
Because he fails at his mission, right?
No, he
won't. He sucks. Yeah. Yeah, he does. I mean, he
gets
does.
shot in the chest while he's chasing the person with the
lady's on the plane. No. The scientist is a time traveler. She says,
that's
I'm
her
insurance.
In the past.
I thought they looked similar. I didn't realize
it was her.
It's the same actor.
Yeah, she's not actually an insurance agent. She's insurance on the plan. She's making a double joke. I'm insurance. She was told who had the briefcase. And so she sits next to the guy with the briefcase on the plane. They just set that up. They have the advantage of being in the future and being able to set that up in advance.
Right. So she would be able to stop him on the plane, right?
She didn't stop him. She just needs a sample.
Right. Okay. Because I thought like this was just like a joke that they played. Because I noticed it was the same actor, and I was like, "Oh, is it her in the past? Like 30 years? Like that's a little weird." Okay.
I literally had that same thought. Yeah.
She has that tone where she's like, "Oh, what do you do?" And she's like, "I
thought she was a snooty rich asshole."
Right.
Like, no, I think that's like dropping a punchline, kind of.
Good.
Like
Ryan,
something James Bond would say.
Thank you for explaining that. Yeah. That makes the ending so much better, dude. Because I was just like, I was like, fuck. Like, what was the point of all that?
Because as soon as he makes the phone call, he turns around and he sees Jose.
Right.
Yeah.
And Jose knows everything he said on the phone call.
Yeah.
Because Jose just heard it in the future and it was sent back. So like, just like that woman, Jose knows what's going on.
Okay. Yeah. And to kind of explain for, I guess, the audience too, like there's been flashbacks throughout the whole movie of Bruce Willis remembering this scene in the airport where someone gets shot in front of him. And it's kind of explained later that the person who gets shot is him. He saw his own ass get shot in the future trying to stop this crazy guy with vials of a virus that he's going to release it and shit. Wasn't like, there was that scene where the guy like opens the virus in the airport security line and he has the guy sniff. I mean, that's like, he like spread the virus.
Gotta be
there.
patient zero, right?
Because they said at one point, Philadelphia, New Orleans, yada yada, and they listed all the cities.
Right.
And so this took place in Philadelphia. So that was how it spread.
I like how it wasn't TSA, but airport security at the time, where they were like, it's biological samples. And this guy's clearly like a fucking scientist. He's like, open it. And he's like playing with the vacuum sealed tube, like trying to crack it open. I was like, dude, I would not. I know it's 1997 and, lead poisoning's at an all-time high. All right. Like, you should not.
I like the general disregard for like authority by authority in that scene where the security person he's like, I've got the papers that let me have this right here. And he's like just tossing them like, meh, meh, meh. And then he's like, I can open that one too. The guy's like, hey, whatever. Bored. It's like, why'd you give?
Like, what the fuck?
Really realistic, honestly.
Yeah, honestly, yeah.
One dude on a power trip.
One thing I thought was a little weird was Catherine's reaction to realizing the little boy was Bruce Willis. Because, like, she sees Bruce Willis die and bleed out in front of her. And the airport security guys are also just kind of watching her cry over the body. They're not, like, engaging at all. They're like, oh, fuck, I just shot that guy. And, like, she's, like, looks over at this little boy who's watching and crying. And she kind of does this weird, like, knowing smile, like, it's him. And I'm like, way to fuck up that kid for life. Like, no wonder why Bruce Willis grew up to be fucked up. Like, he just saw a dude get murdered, and then she like looks at him and just gives a creepy smile, like, it's all gonna be okay. It's him, even though he just died. I don't know. That was just a weird choice. That was some 90s shit, man. Some kind of weird ass deep tonal shit.
Yeah, and then a week later, everybody, 5 billion people die.
Yeah, they all fucking die.
So that would have left. It's obviously not a lot compared to the total population of the world, but 700 million people left because I looked at the population in 1996. I feel like 700 million people, still a lot of people.
Yeah, sort of. But when was their last time there was 700,000 people?
Yeah.
Go back.
Fucking Stone Age.
Back.
Yeah.
Let's do human population over time.
Yeah, I mean, I think we would definitely experience total collapse, if we lost even like a quarter of our population. I mean, you can see what even losing just a couple million did to our system just, in the past few years, not to get too close to the reality.
Yeah. I hope that some of those CEOs would have died in the 700 million people, though. So that might have been able to right the ship a little bit.
Dude, in AD 2,
Okay.
there were... So this is AD, the year 2.
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
There were 57 million people in China.
God damn.
That's a lot.
They were... China was kicking ass early in the game.
Yeah. In the 1300s, there were 443 million people in the world. So, like, you would be... Yeah.
We'd be, like, riding horses with mustaches and
Sounds kind of fun.
Discovering germs and witch magic. That's interesting, though. Like, I never thought about, like, when's the last time we got to that point. You guys hear that fan theory of that, like, the whole movie is a delusion of Cole and, like, none of this actually happened?
No.
Like, it's actually, like, a prominent
that was
fan
literally
theory.
part of the plot. At one point, he thought he was just being delusional.
Yeah, and he just ends up being a guy who gets shot at an airport and none of it actually happened.
Disregarding every single thing about the movie. So, like, that's what I don't like about fan theories. Like, oh yeah, if 99% of the movie hadn't happened, I could come up with a different theory about what would have happened.
Like, what if everyone was dead the whole time and just scoot that into any universe? Yeah. Also, what happened to Brad Pitt's character? Like, he just kind of
he got arrested. He was in the paper. He got arrested.
Oh, he did get arrested, kind of off camera. All right.
Well,
thanks, Ryan.
A still camera.
Yeah. Oh, thanks.
I enjoy thinking about that now. Well, Ryan, after you explain the ending, the fact that he really just was crazy. He really just was insane. Like, he literally says he's trying to have his dad develop this virus to kill a bunch of people, and then his big plan was just getting animals out of the zoo and putting his dad in the cage. And you're like... Again, misdirection. You're like, oh my God, he's the bad guy. He's going to start it all. It's crazy. And then he's like, woohoo, good prank.
King of the pranks.
Giraffes on the freeway.
which rules. That made me
Yeah.
like his character more. And
Oh,
it was
yeah. He was harmless.
it was actually the crazy assistant scientist who was
David
an apocalypse.
Morse.
Yeah.
What's with David Morse going through airport security? This is the second movie where that's happened in the last 5 movies.
Because he was the airport representative in Passengers, right?
Yeah, it's not that weird, but it's weird that it's happened twice.
He looks like just this bureaucrat who wants to just secretly murder everybody, I think. Did you guys hear the thing about the tagline for this movie, which was like, the future, the original tagline was, "The future is in the hands of a man who has none." And everyone got confused because it made it sound like he has no hands. And like they had to scrap it because all these test audiences were like, "Why doesn't he have hands?" It's really funny. And it's a challenging movie too, I think, for 90s audiences. You know, we don't have like an established like time travel universe, I think, and not like we have now where we just expect it in movies. Because now it's in Flash, it's in kind of fucking every show. Like you're like, oh, time travel, yeah. I know,
Yeah, if people who watch Flash can handle it, then pretty much anybody can handle it nowadays.
Do you guys want to get into our meters? Are we feeling that direction right now? Like, do we want to get into our apocalymeters?
Alpacalometer.
How many alpacas were in this movie? Not 12. Probably at least 2.
Could have been 1 or 2.
Could have been 1 or it'd suck if it just one alpaca.
It's kind of weird that we're like not sure if it's 0. Most movies you're like, yeah, I'm pretty sure there was 0 alpacas in this movie.
It could have been 1. I was gonna say this earlier, like I was gonna do one of those Denali watch-alongs for the Instagram, and I was going on a rant for a while about how this is a movie called 12 Monkeys, and there's no monkeys in this movie. And then I quickly had to just stop the video because like monkeys just started appearing all over the place.
How many?
I think it was literally 12. I think there's like a fan following who does like a monkey count. And I think it was 12 that are in this movie. And I was like, well, shit, there goes my entire bit. They did do a good job at showing monkeys in this film.
For editing too, you're like, I don't want to put this scene in here, but I don't have any more monkeys.
I know. Well,
I'm
I
at
was
11. Or like 13 and you're trying to decide which monkey.
I know which monkey to cut.
Yeah.
That's a monkey every 6 minutes on average, man. Like, if you want to spread them out, you can't just have 12 monkeys in one scene. It's a nightmare.
The Philadelphia Zoo does not have alpacas or llamas, which
Did
is
they in 1996?
what I was hinting. I don't know, because it's a Now website. So
Go to the Way Back When generator and look at their count.
we'd have to time travel to solve this problem.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. How many monkeys? Gather information because we can't change anything.
Yeah.
Sorry, before we get into the meters, I just want to play the box office game real quick with you guys about this opening weekend. Because this movie opened at number 1
Wow.
that weekend. Okay, it did pretty fucking good. It was a runaway hit. But number 2 was a certain sequel that came out. It's a boomer movie. It's a comedy, a buddy comedy that came out. Number 2.
Rush Hour 2?
Not Rush Hour 2.
I have
Lethal Weapon 2.
Not Lethal Weapon.
Oh, that's good.
Think a lot less muscle.
Can I guess?
Yes.
Beverly Hills Cop 2.
That's wrong. Even less muscle.
Starsky and Hutch.
Think older. Think older leads, like way older. And they're like
Are they dead
mad.
now?
They're like mad old guys.
Mad
they're-
old guys, and it's
They're
number 2?
pissed.
Grumpy old men.
What's the sequel
2.
to Grumpy Old Men? Grumpier Old Men was number 2.
I don't even know that I've ever heard of that movie.
It's this dumb movie. Yeah,
How did that beat this? This thing is like this thing is a
that was number
masterclass.
2.
It was number 2.
This movie beat Grumpier Old Men.
Oh, okay.
It doubled the budget, but Grumpier Old Men, granted, was on week 3, so it had a little bit of a head start. And then in third place, there is another iconic board game adaptation movie, 1996.
Clue.
Not Clue. We're talking iconic. And this was recent.
Battleship.
If there was a Monopoly movie, I think that's Wall Street.
Checkers.
It was recently remade with The Rock.
Oh, Checkers 2.
Checkers 2. It is Checkers 2. It's Jumanji. It's Jumanji,
dude.
guys. It's fucking Jumanji. All right. You guys, Jesus. It's like pulling teeth. Let's do the meters. All right, Ryan, what do you think about it?
So FYI for our audience, I know this was a real big hitter, so there may be people who haven't listened to us before. There's a lot of 12 Monkeys fans out there.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to have 2 meters. First, we rate how much of an end of the world movie was this? How end of the world was it, if you will? And we're going to have that's our apocalometer.
I thought we were changing it.
No, we're not changing it.
As of last week.
No.
What were we changing?
What was it
to?
last week? It was really good.
It was the Doom meter?
I obviously
forgot
don't
what it was
remember.
too.
So
I need to edit that episode.
Disastometer or something.
Disastometer. Oh, I think it was. Yeah.
Okay.
What do you think?
yeah.
So So first we're gonna do that.
Okay. How many? What about the monkey meter?
And then we're gonna rate it on the movie meter and just rate the movie. Subjective opinions about the movie itself. And that's where you really learn our thoughts. So like Moonfall, for example, was very different. The two scales. Do not get them confused. We are not idiots. So this movie, the Apocalometer, I don't know where to land on it because, like I've said, I want to reward movies where it happens. And I don't know if the GBGBs could survive this or if we could stop it. I mean, Jace wouldn't survive. He loves partying way too much. Me, there'd be some brewery that has some late night release, and I would go to that and I would die. Denali, good chance.
Yeah, I'm bunkering up, baby.
He's been pretty good through the pandemic.
He does get hit the hardest.
I get hit pretty
virus.
fucking hard.
Yeah, less
I
likely
get
to
laid
survive.
the fuck out. I got no chin. I got good head movement.
But also, if we were so tasked, like if one of us was sent back in time in place of Bruce Willis, I feel like we'd do pretty good.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Luckily,
I don't
I'd get to be behind the table. I'd be like, who are we gonna send back in time?
And so I don't know. I like that part of it. I could see us in that situation, and the movie does happen. It gets a point for that. 5 billion people do die. Like that's serious biz. And it's not like Moonfall where like, oh, people almost died, but it's not like an apocalypse end of the world situation. It's not like the human race will literally cease. It does change human history. It is end of the human world as we know it, but it's not like the moon is literally crashing into the surface of the planet. The whole thing's gonna turn into a big lava ball. Like, so
That
I
would
don't
end
know.
life as we know it.
Yeah, that'll do it.
So I'm probably gonna go with a 6. Because it definitely was an end of the world movie, and that was a theme throughout the whole thing. But then again, it's not like Jay said, like still a lot of people would survive.
Yeah, Ryan, you bring up a good point about the scenario. So the other scenarios that we talked about with our big disaster team up fight off, they would all definitely wipe out all of the humans on the Earth. They would do the job completely, right? This movie is more of like an end of the world as we know it. Everyone had to move underground and stuff, and like it sucked. Like most people died, right? And it wicked sucks, and there's animals everywhere. Non-human
This
animals
wicked
populating.
sucks.
It wicked sucks.
99% people die.
Animals that would not be like thriving in that biome together as apex predators, like a tiger on top of a building and a giant ass bear.
Only tiger. Like, when you talk about overall KD ratio, though, per disaster, okay? The Moonfall, probably like a solid million, It was pretty bad. A lot of people fucking died. Okay, probably a couple million people died, all right? Fifth Element, I think 3 guys died. And then The Core, I think 4 guys died, but that was the people in the fucking machine. Like, and I don't think anyone died from the bird stuff. That was all just self-inflicted.
Dumb birds.
And then a lot of birds died, but I'm not going to count that.
Didn't the bridge collapse?
Some guy got a sunburn.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So KD ratio in this movie is going to be kind of high because the virus did kill 5 billy, which is way higher than the other ones. I'm going to give it some points for that. No San Francisco bridge getting fucked in this movie. Okay, that's going to get a little mark off here. No birds really going crazy. There was an owl, but I think he was pretty calm in this, so I'm not going to give it for that one either. U.S. did cause this disaster, so I'm going to give it a point for that. U.S. I think is implied that it would find the solution, so it's going to get another disastometer point there. Very U.S. centric. There was no like people from other countries collabing on this thing. We got it, guys. I think I'm going to nail it at 6. I think that's a fair number, Ryan. I like it there. I don't think this was like a true, like, fucking destroy everything meteor going through the Earth. But it got part of the way there.
I'm so undecided today. Really, really undecided today. If I go down the list, apocalypse, major topic of the movie. entire thing. Pretty cool scenario. It's our first virus.
First virus.
Virus plus time travel.
Don't get a lot of those.
The apocalypse itself, like you said, I'm going to give it a point for completely and drastically altering human society as we know it. Like, especially because in the movie, it's like kind of visceral in the scenes, in the setting where they're underground, everything's dripping, rusty, wet. It's like, wow, if that happened, just let the virus take me out.
That sucks. No fucking TikTok?
Yeah.
No Wi-Fi?
I don't want to be living underground and getting my booty scrubbed by two dudes with brushes, big brooms. So that's a point. And I thought that, it was creative that they didn't just go back in time and start blasting. They're like, we can't change it. We can try and make our future better by going back and gathering some information, but the things that have occurred in the past have already occurred. So
they didn't nuke it.
I think this is a bit better. This is probably more end of the world than The Fifth Element. But I'm gonna give it a 7.
Yeah, fair enough. It's a tough one to rate. There's a lot going on too in this movie. And now, of course, as Ryan said, this is where we will do our movie meters. What do we think actually about this movie?
Yeah, I think my problem is going to be separating the subjective from the objective. I do think parts of this movie were lackluster, and it was so stylistic. I don't think that the director or the producers or people who wrote this movie think anything's wrong with it, and that's something I do kind of appreciate. They went all in on this style. I don't know what to think about it. I watched it yesterday. I'm hovering around the 7 or the 8 because I personally really liked it, and I don't know that those things that were wrong with it really impacted my viewing experience. And I don't think that maybe this movie needs to be docked for those things, like the dubbing that was kind of distracting at times, or maybe Bruce Willis's like wooden delivery on a couple stuff, which is fine. It's Bruce Willis. You get what you get. And then I think what you said, the definitely the stuff that didn't age well. It would be a much different movie if made today, but then again, they would be cutting a lot of corners, using a lot more CGI, and I think that would be making a worse movie. I did love how gritty in the 90s this movie was, and if you made me guess, if I wasn't able to accurately guess the age of Brad Pitt and Bruce Willis, I would probably say this movie was made in the 80s, but I really did appreciate how practical they wanted to do stuff. I think I'm going to give this movie an 8. I liked everything about it, I think. It's just... It wasn't a perfect movie, no, but I would watch it again, definitely. And I think I'd probably gain a lot on the second viewing. That's something that I value a lot too, because movies to me aren't just like a one-time experience thing. They do exist. That's the whole point, is you can watch them multiple times. That's kind of like the point. And I think before, you guys have said you don't like watching movies more than once sometimes, at least before this podcast. And so that was on my mind. So number one, I'm never going to be able to get Julie to watch this again. And number 2, I want to watch it again. So it definitely made me curious. That's one of the most important things that a movie can do.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, Ryan, especially what you said about the stylistic choices in this movie. There are so many weird things in this movie, and I think that's to its benefit, both tonally but also in the writing. I think it's conceptually interesting too. I think they took a lot of risks, so I got to give it some artistic credit. This was not a paint-by-numbers, just action movie here. I think they really tried to make something unique, and I think this movie was pretty influential when it came out. With that said, like you said, it's not perfect. I think it has some pacing issues. I talked about things that kind of bothered me in the movie. I also think the character of Catherine, aside from like the relationship aspects I didn't like, I do think she made some choices towards the end that I didn't think made a whole lot of sense for her character. I think there was some writing issues there with some other characters too. But overall, I do think it's a worthwhile movie to watch. There's a reason why they made like a spin-off of it. There's a reason why it's like a cult film, because I think there is something here that you can get a lot from. With that said, I think there were things that kind of hurt my enjoyment. Like I said, there were parts where I was kind of checking the time a little bit. I think the 2-hour, 15-minute runtime was a little long in the tooth. So yeah, and I think that's a trend for this season. But yeah, I think I'm going to put it at a 6. I think for me, it's above average. I think someone else might have a different impression of this movie. And I think that could be a good thing. when you take a lot of risks like this?
I think once again, or I'm going to split the difference. I'm going to go with the 7. And I think a lot has been said. We actually pretty much just spent the whole podcast talking about the movie instead of doing, besides that, improv at the beginning. Two notes. I've seen where people take the primary color of each scene in a movie and like make like a pictograph of it. And we've talked tonally. This movie's just very, very gray. And it's, kind of a mirror into each one of the actors or the characters' kind of mind and their personal being at the time. Especially when we deal with these characters that are kind of perceived as crazy and being off base, maybe. And to that regard, like when we talk about the character whose name I already forgot, the doctor, Dr. Peters, Riley?
Dr. Riley,
Dr. Riley, yeah.
Catherine Riley.
So when this has been kicked off during this podcast because I don't really haven't had much time to digest this movie. Is that if you look at like a sanity versus time, I think you get to about 3/4 of the way through the movie where Bruce Willis and Dr. Riley they cross paths. Because she's in the beginning, she's like the steady state where she has this research into the Cassandra complex and is like obviously interested in how people are like stating the same time for the end of the world. But, as she's kind of interacting with Bruce Willis' character, she's kind of becoming unhinged. She's finding out like, oh my God, this is actually real. And then she's kind of like, they're kind of like, oh, let's go to Florida before the end of the world, but her sanity starts to kind of like to drop. It's like steady. And then it's like, woo. Whereas Bruce Willis we see is like coming out of time travel, freaking crazy, drugged up in the asylum. And he's just like super down low before traveling back into the future and then being like, good job. You got a full part in. And he kind of has this like lucid moment. But it's not really lucid because he's like, you're right. I was crazy. I am crazy. Right. She's like, shut up. I need you right now. You weren't crazy. This is actually happening. Come back. When did you? And they like cross, they kind of cross paths in this craziness at that point in the movie. So those were like, I didn't enjoy the gray, but I liked the characters kind of evolving and devolving. And other than that, 7.
Yeah. So not a bad score for this movie, honestly. Probably the higher ones for this season for all three of us.
Yeah.
And I also want to pose a question that I've asked every episode this season. Dadcore?
I mean, it's got Bruce Willis.
That's a point on the meter.
They're
I don't
obviously
know.
going for the dadcore audience. I just don't know if they did that well because I don't hear this movie come out when people are talking about, oh, I watched this movie. I can just totally turn my brain off and watch some people kill some people.
Too complex, not enough cleavage.
And they didn't have like a liberal villain that they could really go after. I mean, it's obvious that the liberals were the villains.
Yeah,
but
they said
wasn't
ineffectual liberal jerk-offs in this movie.
Yeah, but it wasn't like some guy who they could emasculate.
Yeah, I mean, I did think the depiction of protesters were a little bit like, hey, man, like, we got to save the animals, man. Like, they were kind of supposed to be dumb, I think.
But that's what they ended up being, too. Like,
they were dumb.
Yeah.
In the movie.
And that was the whole joke, is that, like, everybody thought these were the masterminds. But it wasn't. It was the scientists.
I don't know if it's dadcore. I'll just say that. I don't think it is.
Yeah.
I don't know if like a lot of dads are like, yo, I just watched 12 Monkeys. You guys got to see this shit. I thought it was a good movie.
Yeah.
Maybe, I mean, dads might like this, but it's not dadcore. All right, there we have
it. That's what I think about 13 Lives, dude.
I think that's dadcore. It's a technical movie. It's based on a true story. I feel like that's a dad movie. It's a great movie though.
We could have a season where we just watch movies that are numbered in the exact order, like the 1, 2, 3, 4.
Pitch this once or like
I don't know. Did we?
What's we can watch The One first with Jet Li. Is there a 2 movie?
I think there's leeway. So if a sequel has 2 in the title, it might be allowable.
And we can work our way up to 100 Dalmatians.
It reminds me of you guys remember, because I was thinking about Slaughterhouse-5. It reminds me we didn't talk about the war scenes very much. If this movie had more war scenes, it would be a dadcore.
Oh yeah, there was a World War One.
If he went back to 1990 and then went back to 1915 or whatever, it definitely would be more of a dad core. But those were very brief.
I know it wasn't enough, and it wasn't enough for the History Channel watchers.
Yeah.
I like those scenes though.
I like that because it's specifically for world building to give the Doctor's character
like a picture.
It was cool.
Yeah,
I like that scene. That was how she had picked. She didn't know she had picked up on it, but she was proving that time travel was real while she was trying to prove that these people were just crazy and time travel wasn't real. That was really interesting.
That was cool, dude. Do you guys remember like during the 2016 election, some guy like went up to all the candidates and would like ask them if they would kill baby Hitler in the crib, and like most of them like rebuffed him, and like Jeb Bush was like, hell yeah, I would. And I'm like thinking about that question, like, and it's like there's an intelligent answer to that question, which is like, I wouldn't fuck with time travel. Like, I mean,
well, also people don't understand that like time travel may already be real, and the world we live in may be the consolation world.
I feel like that was a bit something, or like how everyone in the audience is all time travelers of all stopping each other from like, it's like that Rick and Morty episode where like they had the snake Hitler and like a time traveler comes back, but another time traveler stops him, and it's like just millions of people show up to shooting each other, and it's like it's like this whole thing. What would you guys do with a time machine? If you guys got a time machine, what would you guys do?
One time in 5th or 6th grade, there was this movie playing at the one screen moving picture show house.
Yeah.
In middle of nowhere, California. And of course, as a strapping young lad, I went to the moving picture show house. God, I can't fucking talk. Obviously, as a strapping young
to drive you
lad,
home, buddy?
Yeah. I went to the moving picture show house to put my moves on with, to like cement my place in the social status of that world. Okay. And because that's what you did. If you wanted to be cool, you would go to the movies, except the kids who were cool didn't go to the movies. And there would be girls there. And you would pick like which row you sat in. Like you could sit with the boys, or if you had talked to a girl that week and been like, hey, are you going to the movies on Friday? There might be a seat next to her. Well, one day...
1950
Jesus
story.
Christ.
That place
I was at the ice cream parlor.
You guys have both been there. You know that's locked in the 1950s. One time, there was a situation where the boys were in the 3rd row and the girls were in the 1st row. Oh. And I had talked to a girl and been like, yeah, let's go. I'm going to go to the movies. You should go. And she was there. And I was walking in the aisle. And she turned and looked at me and was like, smiled, like, hey, and I chickened out and I sat with the boys.
Oh.
And from then on, Ryan. I had like zero luck with girls until,
So Ryan gets a time machine and he's like, fuck my marriage. I need to go back to the 6th grade. Sit next to her.
It's not that. It's like when I was a kid, that's when every time I watched a time travel movie, I was like, I'm going to go back and I'm going to sit next to that girl. I'm not joking.
As a 30-year-old.
As a kid, that's what I would think about with the time. I didn't care about like, the Crusades.
Jace, what would you do? What would you do? Do you have a thing in your past?
Probably. I was going to say probably murder that first sentient ape so we don't get stuck in this capitalistic hellscape we call life.
The first ape who trades rock for banana.
Shove down.
No, that's currency.
And then we dissolve. I stab the ape and I dissolve.
Or like you try to do that, but he's a 800-pound ape and he rips your limbs off and beats you to death.
I didn't think about this.
Or a cyber ape time travels at the exact same moment, then punches you in the face. And then a million other cyborg humans and apes keep time traveling back to that moment. I would undo when I was in 9th grade. I was in Alyeska at a ski chalet.
Oh, I got made fun of for going back to the 6th grade, but this guy goes to the 9th grade.
Listen, this is more recent, all right? Less butterfly effect. And then there was this kid. I was like leaning over, tying my boots, and this kid was playing with a ketchup packet in his hands. and then it exploded straight into my eye. Now, I didn't know it was a ketchup packet. I didn't know what happened, but all I knew was my vision suddenly turned red then black, and I thought I lost my eye. Like, I thought someone fucking shot me in the head or something because it exploded with a lot of force. So my reaction was a little bit of an overreaction. So I screamed when this happened. It was painful. It was pretty, like, stingy in the eye. So I was like, ah! Like, I screamed so loud. I didn't know how loud I screamed until, like, moments later when I realized the chalet was dead silent. There was like 300 people in there. Everyone turned. The EMTs actually came in, and I was leaning on them and walked to the med tent like I was fucking dying. And they went into the tent and they wiped the ketchup out of my eyes. And they were like, some idiot sprayed ketchup in my eyes. And I was like, oh, I see. And they kind of washed it with a water bottle, this poor 17-year-old EMT. And I walk back in, and everyone is still silent looking at me. And I have ketchup down my shirt. And the kid who sprayed ketchup, all he saw was me scream when the ketchup exploded out of his hands. And he's just holding a paper towel that he got from the bathroom because he ran away when I screamed. And then everyone kept talking about that the whole snowboarding season. And I think I would undo that one. I think that one, I lost a lot of social currency in high school really early on because of that. And it was hard to just work my way out of that pit. So probably that one, I think.
That explains so much. And I think I've heard that story before.
Almost certainly.
Yeah. Like, hey, Denali, remember that time?
You lost your mind.
I remember at that chalet in the lodge. We're saying chalet like the fancy. It's a freaking food court.
Yeah, with the really shitty food.
You would never, if you left the table and you had a drink or food there, that food was dead to you.
Yeah, it was inedible. Like, they would put that fry between their butt cheeks, they would piss in your drink, they would do something to it, and you would never eat it.
That only happened like once.
Yeah.
Chalets intimidate me.
Yeah, it seems like someone's gonna challenge me to like a ski race.
Yeah.
To like save the town.
And it's a lot of fucking people, like all fighting and elbowing for space too. I hate that.
Yeah, and I'm not a shredder. You know, I can't beat the guys. So anyways,
if you were
guys,
in Johnny Tsunami's shoes, that would be a giant ski only resort by now.
Mm-hmm.
Man,
yeah. What would you guys? I mean, message us, DM us. What would you guys do with the time machine? And thanks for listening. What do you guys think about 12 Monkeys? Let us know. This is another cult movie that we reviewed. Got a lot of good ones this week. But with that, Jace, what do you got for us for next week? It's your
Wheel of Chaos.
No.
Oh, God.
I also thought you were going to say Wheel of Time. And I was like, oh, wow, that makes sense. Time traveling movies. But that's not really a time travel series. That's not the series.
Oh, okay. Jace is pulling up the randomizer wheel. Oh, my God.
I couldn't pick. And, I couldn't pick.
Oh, I love all these.
Yeah, I've got
apparently, my computer does not like when I have a screen open and try to work,
you can
which
mute it.
might
you
be
can just,
fucking with my Audacity.
Do it off camera. You can just tell us what it does.
Okay, so for the listeners at home, again, didn't really have much time to think. There are a lot of movies. Kind of embarrassed about the Fifth Element pitch last time, so kind of wanted to.
It counted, Jace.
What?
It counted.
That was great.
Kind of. So anywhere, I thought of 5 movies, each completely, I think, different, all end of the world, and in no particular order. The 2018 movie Annihilation, I think something we've all seen, which is really just a fantastic movie. One of my favorites next. Pandorum,
yes,
a horror sci-fi kind of contained end of humanity movie. And then next 2 zombie movies. One I think would be our first foreign flick, Train to Busan.
Yeah, boy.
Which I think again is one of these self-contained. So it's like end of the world, maybe imminent, but a little bit more self-contained. Off-rail comedy, Shaun of the Dead.
Nice.
Hilarious. And then
just love that movie. Yeah.
New
It's a good
2022, super hot. I think a bunch of awards. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once.
Is that an end of the world movie?
I'm
It's kind of it's kind of the major theme is that the main character needs to solve a problem or end of humanity.
Okay.
In a way.
I'm rooting for that one because I have a Showtime subscription that expires in January, and that's on Showtime, so I can see it for free, and I can see Michelle Yeoh, who's my hero. So
Have you watched it before?
no, I haven't. I haven't seen it. I'm excited to see it.
I
But
could-
any of these picks, I'm hype.
Okay.
Unless you want to fix the game off camera, and I would never know.
No, don't please, because a lot of those are great.
Yeah,
I
they're great
really
picks.
like the first two, Annihilation and Pandorum. Pandorum is a nice selection because a lot of people do not appreciate that movie.
Yeah,
And
you
I know we
spoiled
used to
that one
watch
for
that
me,
like
Ryan.
every weekend.
We watched it so many times.
I spoiled it
Okay.
for you? Is that what you said?
You spoiled Pandorum for me, and that's why we spoiled Shutter Island for you.
Oh, that's where that is from?
The great spoiler wars, yeah. Where it would be an arms race of who could watch the movie first to spoil it.
That was mutually assured destruction in high school. It was.
Just
I
ruined a
remember
lot of good
Brittany
movies.
going insane because Shutter Island got.
Yeah.
Oh, vey.
All right, spin it, Jace. If it lands on everything, I would think you fixed it for me. So just know that. He's sharing the screen. Oh my
Wow,
goodness!
okay.
It is
Didn't change anything.
everything. You did, Jace. Thank you for fixing it for me, man. I really that subscription is gonna go out soon. So. I appreciate you helping me out there.
It's a hot movie.
Sweet.
I think
It's a hot movie.
I think it'll be interesting to watch. The conversations about it is going to be hilarious.
I have no idea what it's about. I just know the multiverse.
It's
I'm
great.
fucking hype, dude. I'm hype. I want to see this movie. I've heard it be called the best of the year. I'm surprised it took that title from Moonfall, but I think this will be fun. So we're gonna be off, I guess. Well, maybe not for when this comes out, but us three are gonna be off for the next 2 weeks for the holidays. So there may be a temporal delay. We're recording this in like mid-December. But maybe it won't matter to you. But next time we're going to be watching this movie, and we hope you guys will tune in. Thanks for listening. Please continue to follow us and engage with us and poke us on all the medias. Jace discovered you can rate us on Spotify, so maybe just...
Got to listen for 30 seconds. But
Yeah.
if you are on Spotify, you
Our
can rate
new
our
theme
podcast.
song is good, so just listen to that.
Yeah, listen to my sick new guitar riffs that I do on our new theme song. Stream it, baby. I got rent to pay. So, thank you guys. Thus far, anything you guys want to say to the audience before we head out for the holidays into the new year?
Maybe the human race does deserve to be wiped out.
No, Ryan, you can't just end the year on that. You can't just fucking...
That was a line in the movie.